Okay, so today we will be talking about boundaries in romantic relationships. So what is boundary? Just now we kind of mentioned a little bit. It's not about setting firewall that makes people couldn't come in, but also it's more like a setting boundary to protect yourself, to tell the other person what is okay for me and what is not okay for me. So it's protecting your well-being, telling someone to stop a harmful behavior or behaviors that makes you feel uncomfortable. So you have anything you would like to share, like how you view boundary initially as well, and how it is now you view about boundaries?
Yeah. I think at first I also see in a way whereby, boundary meanings like just creating the distance in between us with our partners. But after time, as we go deeper into the study about what boundary is, according to different theories and also different lenses and how we build it. Actually boundary is more the extent of us feeling comfortable with sharing our emotions with our partner, because there can be times that we want to have some space in between, not to be overly clingy, but also not to be overly distant from our partner. Yeah.
So it's kind of finding the balance, not just being too clingy or too distant lah. Right, that's true. So I will be talking about what are the types of boundaries that we need to understand. And then the next thing is also looking at what's the consequences if we don't set a good boundary. And then Vincent will also be introducing a bit more underlying what are the reasons or what are the causes of an tendency to set unhealthy boundaries, whereby we will talk about attachment styles. And the last part is how do we set a healthy boundary with our partner lah. Okay. All right, so we'll go with what are the different types of boundary that we can take note of. The first one is intellectual boundaries. So this means about our beliefs, our belief systems, our cultural belief, our spiritual beliefs, and we have different beliefs, right? We are living in Malaysia. We also have so many different cultures. So how is that we need to set a healthy boundary between people and also within our couple as well, to, for example, how men and women should behave like. That's also under this cultural belief. So something like, maybe your partner believes that you should just do house chores, but maybe you don't believe this way. So there's a clash of this boundary that we need to address instead of just leaving it that way, right? And also, how should we dress in certain occasions? This is under cultural boundaries where we need to kind of clarify and also respect our partner as well on this matter. And another one is spiritual boundaries, like, for example, how much you believe in God, your belief system in your religion, how many prayers you want to perform in a day, in a year, different ways of performing our beliefs. So in this part, we also need to kind of allow people to understand and also help them to respect our differences. So some of us, maybe including our belief in certain foods are available for us to eat, like our Muslim friends will only eat halal food. Some of our Buddhist friends, they will only eat vegetarian food. So there's different boundaries here as well lah. And I think Vincent also have something kind of helping everyone to understand a bit more about boundaries, especially intellectually lah.
So maybe one example of unhealthy boundaries within the intellectual aspect is that, some couples, they may be used to the interaction of underestimating their partner, or they can even belittling their partner's intelligence. For instance, you may come across people who say, "Ayo, why are you so stupid one? Like that also didn't know." So statement like this could make us feel hurt and can even lower our own self-esteem. Not to mention that when it happens within the couple's context and, when we hear it from our partner, it can make us doubt ourselves to a point that, maybe we would think, yeah, I should follow whatever my partner says because he or she is always, cleverer than I am. And then, in that way, an intellectual unhealthy boundary will then be formed, and then the power balance between the couples may then be unequal to one claiming a higher position than the other. And so, this kind of situation can also extend to the point where, it happened in our daily situation. Now, let's take an imaginary scenario, for example. We have two special guests here, Marco and this guy figure. Let's just go with the name of Jack. So Jack and Marco. So today Marco says she wants to eat curly fries. So she says, I want to eat curly fries. And then Jack says, because like Jack is a person that doesn't like curly fries, so he says like, yeah, why you want to eat curly fries? Like, you know, like eating so many of this like weird food can make you go down one. So, you know, conversations like this may sound like, you know, it's very daily, it's very casual, but like, you know, after time, after a long exposure to it, you know, eventually it could also like, you know, get into our mind and get into our heart, you know, and then at some point you can also like become personal. And, you know, when we start to like internalize that, that's also like when we, you know, have like lower self-esteem because like, you know, we start to like believe that, you know, maybe like my partner is right, maybe I'm in this stupid, maybe that's because like why I am like, you know, why I like to eat curly fries is because like I'm dumb, something like that. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with what you said when over time when we overly get exposed to these negative comments or negative feedback about our certain belief systems, like just a simple liking curly fries, what's wrong with that? Just a preference. But maybe some
Mm.
people will actually, especially certain partners, they might attack you for that or just demoralize or criticize you, teasing you. So all these ways of not respecting your boundaries can actually make you feel more low self-esteem in general. So
Mm.
that's a really important part to look at, like how it can impact us if we
Mm.
couldn't set that boundary with our partner. Mm. So the next one, other than intellectual boundary, we also have emotional boundary. So emotional boundary means like how comfortable are you to share something very personal about yourself. For example, your feelings, your past memories, or even your exes. Yeah. So for example, your partner may request you to share more about your past relationship experiences. You might not feel ready to share about it yet. Maybe it's just an early stage of the relationship, so this is a kind of emotional boundary that we can set lah. If you don't feel comfortable enough to share about certain personal information, or you need time to process your emotions as well, that's when we can set the emotional boundaries. Yeah, if not, we might just, some people lah, if let's say they couldn't set the boundary, they may say, oh, okay lah, I will share it to you even though I don't feel very comfortable about it, because they might feel that they are offending the other partner. The other partner will get like disappointed with them, so they're, or maybe they're afraid of the partner feeling like a distance from them. They are fear that they no longer feel that connected also, so they might over share about themselves despite feeling uncomfortable. This is something that we can look out for as well lah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes.
And so like, you know, remember when we talk about like boundary, it's something about like how we feel comfortable in sharing ourselves. So in the sense that, you know, when we feel uncomfortable, sometimes it also can be hard for our partner to see that because like, you know, it's something that we feel inside of us if we didn't like voice it out. So in that sense, communication is also like important as well, you know, in the sense that, you know, if you feel there's any discomfort in like being too far away from your partner or like being too close to your partner, that, you know, you start to feel that you have no room for your breather, maybe you would want to like voice that out to your partner in, you know, certain ways that we are going to talk about in the later section. So as we talk about emotional unhealthy boundary, right? I just thought of an example, maybe like two examples of like, you know, people who can be either overly distant or like, you know, overly clingy to the partner. So, you know, due to like multiple reasons, a person within a couple context might be emotionally distanced away from the partner, and thus there isn't much of like connections or like sharing about like how he or she feels. Or it can also be the other way around. You know, for example, a person who struggles to set like appropriate distance with the partner because of being afraid of separation. And when times go and goes on, the couple might believe that, you know, the other person is like fully responsible for their emotions. And so in that sense, the couple's relationship may be impacted because of, you know, there is like very less time for, you know, personal processing and also like personal space for their own well-being and also growth. Yeah.
So it can become like too suffocating to one person who doesn't want to open up yet, but the other person can also feel very insecure when they don't get that assurance from that person. So it's like a chasing kind of loop lah, a cycle there, right? Okay. Right, so we will move on to our next one is the financial kind of boundary. So I think this is quite commonly happen, especially in a husband and wife relationship, like a marriage, especially when you're kind of sharing a lot of finances, you're sharing your costs, everyday costs. So how your partner is think about what is appropriate to spend on and what is not appropriate to spend on. This often have like a lot of differences lah in two person. So this actually is quite common of a topic for conflict as well in between partners, because maybe one person is more like a open and easygoing, so they just like think I spend on things that I like saja lah, it's okay for me. But on the other person, they may be more tight, more strict with budgets, and then don't like to spend on things that are not necessary, so they can create a conflict as well. So here it comes back to like how okay are you to talk about your finances, and how much are you willing to kind of negotiate on this financial boundary. Like one person is not okay with this, the other person is not okay with different things. So how they can find a middle ground on that also lah. So there's an example of from a Korean drama which I really like to watch. So it's about the husband and wife relationship as well lah. So what happened is, the wife doesn't like the husband to spend money on gaming device. But this husband knows it. So what happened is this husband save up his own money, like his own sum of money, not the household money. And then he finally kumpul money enough to purchase a gaming device. I think it's like PS something, like very new version. Imagine how expensive it is. Yeah. And then what happened is, he hid it in the house lah, and he thought that the wife won't be able to find it. But then at the end, the wife still found it. It's like a Korean drama, right? It has to be drama. So after the wife found it, the next thing we can see is the husband saw the gaming device swimming in the water. Yeah, so it's actually the wife is showering the gaming device. She was so furious about the husband spending money on the gaming device. But the husband was also very furious because the gaming device is showered in the water. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like as a person who enjoys like gaming, like it's very hurtful for me. Like when I imagine about that kind of like scene happening, like what if it happens on me? Like I would definitely feel like a lot of like mixed emotions inside of me. I would feel angry. I would also like feel like feel sad because like my partner didn't understand about me. Yeah.
I can imagine, right? Like from the husband's perspective, it would be like, hey, this gaming is like his passion. But then from the wife's perspective, like, oh, you're spending money on things that are not necessary. You're wasting money. So how this thing can turns out is like creating a lot of conflicts between partners. So that comes like, I look at this scenario, it's more like actually both of them are having some like boundaries issues. Like for example, the husband kind of hiding information from the wife. So of course, when the wife finds out, it's maybe crossing her boundary of my partner shouldn't lie to me. My partner should be transparent to me. That's what she believes in. That's one of the boundary. But the husband crossed that boundary. But on the other hand,
Oh, okay. Sorry for hijacking this. But like sometimes it's also important for us to like remember about like in terms of like relationship building and also relationship management, the responsibilities like placed on every parties within that relationship. So meaning like, for example, in the example that you've given that happened in the K-drama just now, maybe it's just like, neither one of them faults alone, but rather like both of them can be responsible for that situation because yes, number one, the wife didn't like, at least like confront the husband first before like taking any action by showering the PS5. But then on the other hand, the husband also could have inform the wife first before making any decision to buy the PS5 rather than just reading the wife's mind, thinking that, you know, oh, the wife definitely won't approve this one. But, you know, since like it's your own money, maybe like, you know, you could find some way to like explain it around. So like, you know, both of them should like, you know, have like certain levels of give and takes in order to like making that relationship to become healthier in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of crossing that, kind of hiding behind the wife, he can negotiate, communicate what his needs are so that he can get his needs met, right?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
yeah, and another thing from the wife's part is she showering the gaming device without telling the husband, without
Yeah.
understanding how he got this device. She just like kind of cross over, disrespecting like actually the husband's boundary as well. This is something that he really likes. So, so there's many layers to this as well lah. Yeah. So the last one of our boundaries is physical and sexual boundaries. That means how comfortable are we to be physically close to someone and engage in any kind of intimacy with our partner as well. So that includes like some days you will not feel comfortable to engage in an intimacy act with your partner, and it's okay for you to set the boundary and say no. Yeah, and also sometimes in a public place, public space, so for example, you will not be comfortable holding hands with your partner, or some people not comfortable being too close. Actually, it's okay as well to set that physical boundaries lah. So in different ways, we are allowed to set these boundaries to make ourselves feel comfortable about how we want to interact with our partners. And it's actually very important, because if let's say today you give in to your partner, you say, okay, my partner wants the intimacy or something, and I just give in to it, over time we can actually develop a lot of resentment, a lot of burnout feelings, because we don't want it and we are forcing ourselves to do it. Imagine you're forcing yourself to do something every single day with every single person, or like with your partner. That means every day lah. Imagine that. And it means like, you know, maybe it's like when you're working, right, you're forcing yourself to do some tasks that you don't like, and that's okay because it's temporary. But if let's say you're with your partner, you're doing it every single day, 24/7, you are kind of giving in a lot, and you will feel very burnt out, right, to keep on giving in.
That's right. It would have like, you know, felt very suffocating, because, you know, on one hand, you know that the person is going to like spending a lot of time together with you because like you're a couple and you guys love each other. But on the other hand, there are certain things that, you know, just isn't feel that comfortable for you. Maybe, for example, there's too little space, or like, you know, either there can be like too much of space. So you may want to like find ways to, you know, navigate through that, so that, you know, both of you can be in a place that, you know, there's like the best in terms of like managing and maintaining that relationship. And talking about like, you know, finding out ways to deal with that kind of like setting healthy boundary or like dealing with unhealthy boundaries, I guess it's also important for us to like, you know, have this sort of awareness about like why we have unhealthy boundary, how does it arise, so that, you know, we could also know that how can we you know, tackle that accordingly, or like make some certain adjustment to you know, suit our life better, suit our partner's life better. Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe, you know, I can like go ahead with talking about the reason for it. Okay. So so in terms of like why it can be hard for us to maintain a proper boundary with our partner, one common underlying reason is because of attachment insecurity. Now, some of you may have heard of the term before, but before we go any further, let's first talk about what is attachment. So attachment is an emotional connection we see and feel with our caregiver ever since we were infants, meaning like ever since we were babies. And so the quality of that bonding, meaning the closeness of us with our caregiver, and whether or not we feel safe enough being in this very first relationship that we have ever had, may impact how we relate with other people as we grow up. And the effect can also extend to how we manage the relationship as we found our romantic partner. So for example, if our emotional and physical needs are well taken care of by our caregiver during our childhood, then, you know, there could be a higher chance of us developing a secure attachment. in which we feel safe enough to know that the relationship will still be there, even when our caregiver or partner has to be separated with us for a period of time. So not to mention that the secure attachment will also, brings in higher self-confidence, trusting, and also the ability to manage the ups and downs of relationships. While on the flip side, if our needs are often dismissed as we are still in a childhood stage, then there could be a higher chance of us having insecure attachment, as we may run into difficulties understanding our own and others' emotions, and this difficulty might in turn limit our ability to establish a stable and healthy relationship with our partner, as we might find it hard to connect with the partner because we shy away from intimacy, or we can also be very clingy, being constantly anxious about separating with our partner. So we call just now, because we talk about like the K-drama example. So I wonder, Yong-Sin, like has there been any example that you've seen the characters of like any K-dramas that you watch that shows the tendencies of like either shying away from other from intimate relationship, or the person can be very clingy on their intimate partner? So is there any example for this?
Yeah. When talking about Korean drama is my niche lah. No lah. So actually I think when you watch a lot of Korean dramas, you might be able to notice that the male characters, usually they are very distant, avoidant, emotionally close up. They have like a lot of things they just don't show on their face. They just like just not smile throughout the whole episode, and that's possible as well. So sometimes it frustrates me, like what's going on with this male character's mind, like what's happening with this guy. But I think when I look at it, it looks like a bit of the avoidant attachment as well. Like they just close up themselves, very guarded about the information, their personal information, personal feelings. They like to say no to a lot of things. They just like rejecting people outside so that they feel more safe internally. And also they tend to ignore other people's opinion. Like those the what are CEO or all those things, they like to just disregard people's perceptions. So when I look at those behaviors, it looks like more like a rigid boundary kind of behavior, and also avoidant attachment style lah. So they want to kind of keep it to themselves. Yeah. Whereas the female character, it will be mostly of like the anxious type, especially when they're in a relationship. They feel more insecure easily. That creates more drama also, which is very fun to watch, but not fun to experience. Yeah.
So it's also very interesting for us to see that even though like dramas, they can be very dramatic, in some way we might regard it like being unrealistic, but actually the plot itself, or like the characters inside of those dramas, can also be very reflective of how our real life can be, because in the first place there are these people with these attachment styles and with this sort of like different sets of boundaries that they have in their relationship. And that's why people can think of it and then write the plot out and then have it play on the scene. So yeah, I mean there are people with this boundary, and it's a common thing or common phenomenon that's like running throughout life. So yeah, for now we can talk more about like in terms of like the insecure attachment that we talk about just now, because you mentioned about the avoidant attachment. So I would also like to further explain about the different kind of insecure attachment styles, because there are mainly 3 different kind of insecure attachment styles that according to theory and what we have like come up with these days. So the first one is called the anxious attachment, which is the clingy type they talk about this now. So yeah, second one is called the avoidant attachment that Yong-Sin mentioned just now, which is the kind of type that is like hard to trust other people. And also lastly, it would be the disorganized attachment style, which is the hard to trust the world type, on top of like being hard to trust persons who are close to them. Now, all of these 3 attachment styles are centered on how people may subconsciously or consciously behave when it comes to managing relationship. For example, an anxiously attached person may act out in a way which demands like more closeness with their partner, because it would increase the chance of the partner staying with them and soothing their separation anxiety. And one example of like what the anxiously attached person will say is probably "Don't leave me, Kajima," something like that in K-drama, And so in like for people who have anxious attachment, it is also more likely for them to like also develop a boundary that is like very loosened. And then in that sense, it will also like easily allow other people to come into their world. But in a sense, because like they don't necessarily know like if the other person is like safe enough for them to like be remain in their own world, so that sometimes it could lead to some harm to them as well. For example, you accidentally disclose too much of yourself to a person that is like not really with a good intention of like being together with you, something like that. Yeah. Whereas for the avoidant attachment, the person may shy away from their partner, and not because they don't have any separation anxiety, but more so because the strategy that they use is to avoid or minimize the chances where they have to deal with separation anxiety, because the feelings of like separation can be relatively hurtful for them. So they cut off most, if not all, of their close relationships. And by staying away from others like at all, it would also like mean that they won't be facing with the possibility of separation. But of course, like on the downside, they don't like get any form of like intimacy with other people as well. They don't feel connected with people. And one example of what an avoidantly attached person might say is like, I don't need anyone in my life. But remember, being avoidantly attached doesn't mean that a person does not long for any close relationship, but rather it is the way that they use to managing the risk of them breaking down because of separation. So when it comes to like, how they create a boundary, their boundary may be like too rigid to a point where there's like no one can be able to like enter into it. And in that sense, after time, even though that serves, in the first place as a safe space for them to avoid any harm at all. But then after time, they will also like feel isolated and feel lonely because there just isn't any connection with other people.
Yeah.
And so,
I think someone had this question. I think it's quite relatable. Maybe we can address it at this point as well, because we later on will be moving to the kind of how to set good boundaries, right? And you're talking about avoidant attachment that is like trying to protect themselves and feeling fearful of the threats, like when we open up, maybe we'll get hurt and harmed. That's why they're setting these strong boundaries, right? So this question is asking, our audience is asking, how to slowly learn to put trust in someone, especially in a partner, which is from like it seems like mostly like from an avoidant kind of perspective lah, or maybe like how do I trust another person enough, right? So maybe from my perspective, a great conflict when avoidant meet yes, that's true. A great conflict when avoidant meet anxious style. Like even in drama, we can see lah, when another person is chasing and one person is running away. So it's like a chase and run kind of situation. I think for the avoidant kind of person, right, the first thing is kind of recognizing what's the reason we are avoiding. So maybe sometimes in the past we have been harmed, or it comes from our family of origin where we feel hurt at home. So we learned a style to protect ourselves. It's actually an adaptive behavior in the past maybe. So we learn to protect ourselves, we close up our emotions, we don't trust others so easily, we set up very high walls to feel protected and safe. So I think the first thing is kind of recognizing that pattern and also being okay and understanding why today I have this pattern of behavior. That's the first thing. And the second thing is kind of recognizing maybe some thought process which is leading us to feel fearful all the time. Fearful of trusting others. So maybe we will have like a prediction, like if I trust this person, later this person will harm me, or this person will take advantage of me. This person may see me as a weak person when I show up my emotions, right? So all these predictions, right, it becomes it's like a blocking for us to trust another person. So the first thing is to recognize that, hey, maybe it's actually okay for me to trust if this person I have known for some time, and I know this person is consistent, it's not like harmful, doesn't mean to threaten me. So it's recognizing that your partner is okay to open up lah, or slowly to open up bit by bit. So kind of debunking all this thought process and then proceed with opening up with that person lah, your partner or someone close. Yeah, maybe Mason, you have more things to add on to this?
Yeah, I agree to what Yong Xin shared out also, because my way of viewing, like, what are the possible ways, one of the possible ways is like just as what Yong Xin mentioned just now. Of course, like, it can be hard because like this is the way that we have learned to survive, because like maybe in the past we have like unpleasant experiences with certain relationships. That's why we chose to like close up, so that we cut ourselves off everyone, then there's like no chance of us like receiving any harm at all. But at the same time, right now, since we have this realization that maybe we want to have some sort of like closeness in our life, maybe we can like start by slowly, step by step, and start to recognize like what is it that you want, what is it that you need, and also like understand about like what is the first reason, or when's the first place when you first started to learn to become like avoidant of other people. And maybe along the line it can also help you to see that, oh, maybe like right now I don't have to like use this kind of like coping anymore. Maybe there are other ways that is like more suitable for my situation right now. Maybe right now I can start to like slowly trust others. Maybe I can recognize like who's the people that I can trust, who's the people that maybe I don't want to like trust so much. So that kind of thing. So yeah, in general, I think maybe like you can start to like also increase the awareness of like how this all began, and what you can do accordingly, and yeah, we'll be able to get there.
Yeah, but also to mention that there's a lot of things that we shared about how to open up. This process of how it's not a one-day process or a 1 week when we just try and do all these things and we'll be able to achieve. Sometimes it requires constant practice. Sometimes we'll fall back into the old patterns, and then we try to work out from there. And also we need our partner to collaborate with us. So sometimes, especially in the anxious and avoidant dynamic, a chase and a run kind of dynamic, it makes sense as well when this person, the chasing one, is overly strong, overly eager, and it can make the other person who wants to open up feel uncomfortable as well. So this requires them, both of you, to kind of work out what is comfortable in opening up, how to rebuild trust, how to slowly help you feel comfortable to open up yourself lah. It takes a lot of different ways to look at it and find a suitable solution.
Yeah, and that's a very deep question, and hope that all of this information, and also like I would say like this question definitely help us to like reflect more on what we can do in terms of like slowly building that kind of trust with others. And so thank you very much to you, to our audience, Snaza 92. And so for now, let's continue back to the different attachment that we talked about just now, because there's one more that I've yet to talk about. So the last one would be disorganized attachment style, and as like what the name suggests, the person can be disorganized and can be highly inconsistent in their relationship management. So for example, the person with that attachment style can be swinging between the extremes of loving and hating for the partner. The person might say, oh, I love you forever and ever when things are fine, but then says otherwise, like, well, I hate you and I want you out of my life when conflicts arise. Now, that's just an example, but that could be how the conversations go. And as for this attachment style, people who are survivors of neglect, abuse, or trauma can also like have more likelihood of developing it. Now, after we talk about anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and also disorganized attachment, it's important for us to acknowledge that they can increase the chances of the people with developing unhealthy boundaries if they have this sort of like attachment styles, because they have the need to soothe their emotions, particularly in soothing their separation anxiety, which is understandable and it happens very commonly for many people. But as people became habitually reliant on using certain strategies, either by demanding a lot from their partner or distancing themselves from others so they don't get hurt, after time, they can result in them developing unhealthy boundaries in romantic relationships, which, would cause the negative effects that Yong Xin explained just now. And there are different risk factors to it, like, for example, history of being abused, witnessing abuse, having conflictual family relationships, having childhood trauma, and many more. So nevertheless, I would also say like having secure attachment does not mean that a person is completely out of the risk for developing unhealthy boundaries as well, especially if a person sees less in themselves and also having very low self-worth or have like low awareness of their wants and needs in relationships, because then they would probably be not effective in terms of like expressing their wants and needs to their partner, and therefore the partner would also in turn not be able to see from their perspectives clearly and provide support to them accordingly. And so yes, while we talk about so many things that seem to like bring down the mood, and you talk about like how impactful having insecure attachment and having unhealthy boundaries can be, it's also important for us to realize that there are still ways to help ourselves to become more adept in managing relationship. So maybe Yong-Xin, you have like some ideas about like what are the possible ways for us to like set healthy boundaries in romantic relationship?
Yeah, I think our audience cannot wait also. More questions coming in as well to want to know how to set these boundaries, how to make your relationship even better as well. So the first thing is taking time to do this reflection. You can set a time out for yourself, just sit there, take your own like kind of cafe time, think, kind of let yourself feel more calm, and then reflect on yourself maybe in a week time, like, oh, what are the times that I feel uncomfortable with my partner, and what are the times that I feel comfortable as well. So for example, if your partner asks you to throw the rubbish every single day, then at the last day you felt like a bit uncomfortable with her request or his request, you can note it down and say, I don't feel comfortable doing these house chores every single day. I hope that my partner actually, so you can write down your expectations as well. I hope that my partner can actually do some of it, do 20% of it. That's your boundary actually. That's something like you're not comfortable and you're comfortable with. Same thing maybe like in the past week, because sometimes we just overlook our own boundary issues because we're not used to doing that. And so we require reflection. Another example would be like, last week we went to shopping and then my partner actually spent the household money on so many sweets, so many tidbits, those foods that you don't really necessarily like, or spending too much money out of the budget and still be okay with it, but you're not okay with spending too much or out of the budget. So that's something you can write it down as well, like, I don't feel comfortable, I feel really a bit upset when my partner spend like 20 ringgit more than my budget. It's like, we're already spending a lot more this month already, something like that. So it actually helps you to gain that awareness on what's okay for you and what's not okay for you. And to bear in mind, sometimes this what okay and not okay is up for a discussion with our partner lah. That's how healthy boundary is, because we have things that our rules or our own sets of expectations, but we are also open for discussion, allow for adjustment. That's how we can negotiate and navigate through different situations instead of being too rigid or too open about it. So the first thing is awareness lah. So the next thing, maybe Mason, you would like to share?
Right, sure. So remember just now we talked about like you also mentioned like boundary setting is not a one-off thing, because like at first we may be used to this kind of like style of like relating with other people, but as time goes on we realize that we can't like rely on it like for the rest of our life, because there are moments that we want to like let other people in to like feel that kind of connection with other people. So what if, let's say, like you start to change certain things, and but then there are some certain obstacles that you met in the first place. Would you then like feel very defeated, very like stuck, because like it will possibly make you like feel like I've tried so hard to change already, yet the outcome is still the same. Why can't I change this? Like is it because I'm just like bound to be like this? So it can also happen because like like what we said just now, ups and downs are something that's very common in like managing our boundary and also like managing our relationship. So the second way to set healthy boundaries that we would recommend is also like taking small steps. So we can remind ourselves that our attachment styles and the way we normally perceive and handle relationship can be things that are ingrained in us. And it will take time for us to slowly move towards feeling safe when we are to set like an appropriate space between us and our partner. So during our communication with our partner, we may talk about how sometimes we may still find it hard to deal with the feelings that our partner might leave us, but at the same time, also let them know that we are still working on it. Now, take this imaginary scenario, for example. So remember about like in the first place, we have like Marco and also Jack here. So Marco might be an anxiously attached person, and Jack here, just a normal person, let's say, for example. So now Marco is like feeling hungry, and Jack says he will go out to get Marco some McDonald's. So the first reaction that Marco might have would probably be that she wants to follow, but then she's too hungry to move, and she can't move at all. But as the partner has to leave to for about like half an hour in order to get the McDonald's, he also knows that Marco is probably going to feel uncomfortable, feeling insecure because like he won't be there for a while. And now the partner is starting to worry about Marco. But then also at the same time, he needs to go out to grab the McD because, otherwise Marco will be starving to death. And then what can Marco do then? Or like, what can they do? So as a person who is on the journey of like, moving towards developing healthy boundaries, if let's say we are put in this kind of context, we may try to say to our partner that, yes, I'm indeed feeling unsafe when you are not around with me. And although I'm on my way working on it, sometimes my insecurity will still kick in because it has been with me for so long. Yet that doesn't mean that I cannot survive without you. Please be assured that I will still be fine while you go and buy my McD. So for example, something like that. And taking small steps like this, recognizing that sometimes we may still feel unsafe regardless, can help to reassure ourselves and also help to reassure our partner that, it is okay for us to feel that way, because these feelings of insecure doesn't mean that we must definitely act upon it, like creating difficult demands when we feel anxious. Rather, we can use this awareness to also remind ourselves that we're on the path to becoming better and we are constantly improving. Not only that this increases our effective communication with our partner, but also it will improve our self-esteem, allowing us to become more confident in ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that example when you said like this Mariko is trying to set that boundary, but also respect herself that she still needs time to build this new way of setting boundaries and respecting Jack's boundary as well, right? How about when I thought about another way around, when it's not the anxious person but the avoidant part, because we have people from the other side as well, right? More like avoidant and not comfortable yet to share certain things. And that's okay as well, because we need to allow ourselves to take the pace, take the time to slowly open up. And we can do it step by step instead of jumping in straight into the water and say, okay, I'll share about everything under the sun about myself. That will be traumatizing to you. We don't know how the other person will react, right? If you share every single thing suddenly. But you can take steps to kind of open up bit by bit. And also, once you clarify what is you feel comfortable in sharing, what are the things you feel comfortable, then you are okay with sharing lah. It's like taking steps instead of just jump into it straight away as well. Yeah. Okay, so I think Winston, you also have something interesting about how to kind of set or share their opinion, right? When we talk about setting boundaries.
So as you talk about like the importance of like communication, sometimes we may also like wonder like how then we like do the effective communication. How do we tell certain things then? Because like setting a boundary sometimes it requires like it might require some courage and like bravery from you, like to really voice it out to your partner, and yet you don't know like how like the partner will take in, like after seeing that, would the partner feel like you're trying to like leave him or her, and we also like don't don't want to accidentally hurt our partner as well in the process of like, setting the boundary. So there's a technique that I would like to share here, and it's called the safety sandwich technique, that allow us to effectively communicate our needs and wants to our partner in terms of like setting healthy boundaries. So talking about sandwich, when we see like sandwich, so I have a drawing here. Not sure if it's like very clear, but you can see on it that normally there's like 3 layers of it. So like there's 2 layers of bread plus the center piece of the content itself. Yeah, so it's called the safety sandwich technique. Yeah, and so for this technique, you may imagine that the layer of breads are safety statements or positive statements which follow the content itself, which is the most important part of the sandwich. And this part is the pieces of message, the center piece of it is the piece of messages that state our wants and needs to our partner. So for example, how we can voice out our concerns using this technique is that we can first say a positive statement. So you can say something like, I know you are worried about whether I will be fine when you are not around with me. Then followed by saying the content. So meaning like the statement that, sets a boundary on it. So we may say like, but I think this is also a time and opportunity for me to learn to become more able of taking care of myself. And I think if we are always being physically together all the time, it would be unfair for you as well because you will lose your personal time and space. And then after saying your main concern, you can like close out the message by giving another positive statement again. With sentences like this, you can say like, thank you for always supporting me, and I do see your love and care for me. Now, this technique will allow us to convey our wants and needs in a way that is like more acceptable and also easier to absorb by our partner. Because sometimes if we are straight to the fact, and although we may think that we are saving time and being very efficient in delivering our messages, but then imagine hearing just the fact or the content alone from our partner's perspective, it can be very hurtful, and because it feels as though their feelings and care for us are not being recognized. And we would not want to accidentally hurt our partner as much as, we don't want our partner to hurt ourselves. Yeah. So that's the sandwich technique.
Yes. So sometimes the sandwich technique can also, I think it can also pair with the I statement, which is the mid part. You can use the I statement to express what you feel, like how Vincent has demonstrated just now. So to summarize, the top part of the sandwich is giving a positive statement. The second part is to express what you actually felt. You can use I statement as well, and then end it with another positive statement, such as I appreciate that you try your best to understand me, or you listening to me. And also last part is also sometimes we need to negotiate or to kind of restate what we expected, so that the other persons know exactly what we're expecting as well. Maybe just now the case, just now you said, is to kind of allow this partner to have some space for themselves. Is it right? Yeah. So this is something that they can negotiate as well. How frequently to stay together, what are the times that this person is allowed, or this person should allow the other person to have the space for themselves.
Yeah.
And another thing for this sandwich, right, is a very beautiful method that really important to use with our partners, and also to be consistent about it because when we are not used to setting boundaries, we might still fall into the same pattern after some time, because it feels much more comfortable to do it that way, to use our own method. So to kind of rewire our brain, is the next thing is try to reinforce it, do consistent reflection over weeks, and also be consistent when we try to enforce a new boundary, or we try to open up a bit more, setting new boundaries, adjusting our perceptions, adjusting with our partners as well. So that consistency should take place to help you to learn a new way to have different kinds of boundaries with your partner. Yes.
Yeah.
And about the last one also, just now we already mentioned about negotiation so time's about up. So maybe Vincent, you have anything more to add to this?
Maybe the before we go, I would also like to emphasize that, setting the boundary is not like setting a fixed set of rules and regulations, because like boundary can be flexible and change according to the needs and the wants of different couples. So, for example, if a couple is, having regular meeting with one another, like in terms of like physical meeting and stays within a closer proximity, maybe having say like 10 minutes of a call each day is good for them to maintain that relationship and can let the couple feel safe enough to be with one another. But what if the couple enters into a long distance relationship? Then this 10-minute call may not be enough, and they may want to like adjust it to become longer because they don't meet up that physically. They don't meet up like as regularly as possible in physical settings. So they may want to like take more time to update each other and show their love and care for each other. And that's just an example. As different couples, they might have different ideas or agreements on how to make each other feel safe. And the important idea is that we can recognize that boundary setting is not the same as setting up laws. So depending on the situation, couple might want to discuss with one another to what they can do in order to like set a healthy boundary in their relationship. So yeah, today it's been a pleasure for us to be having this opportunity on talking about setting healthy boundaries in couples relationships. We have gone through different types of unhealthy boundaries that Yung Sing shared just now, and what are the relevant impacts of it. We have gone through the different reasons for why unhealthy boundaries exist. And also, last but not least, what we can do to set healthy boundaries with our partner. I would also like to like remind that boundary setting does not mean that we are setting a wall that blocks out your partner. Rather, boundary setting means communicating the extent we feel comfortable with sharing our emotions. Yeah. So, and because our emotions are things that are within us, and thus it can be hard for our partner to understand about how we feel if we didn't communicate them out about like how we are feeling. And therefore, communication is important in creating healthy boundaries and also creating healthy relationships. So remember that communication is not all about expressing alone, but listening is also as important as voicing out. So it would be helpful for us to use our basic human ability to listen and try to understand how our partner is feeling. And that way we will be able to find a way that can best express ourselves according to the situation. Yeah, so before we go, I will leave you with a quote that I read somewhere on the internet. Yeah, but sorry, I'm having a sore throat just now. Yeah, this quote goes like, "Good relationships are no accident. They are the work of effort and also empathy." With that, hope you have gained some information today. And yeah, I'm losing my voice. Maybe Yung Sin, you would like to help me out in closing this.
Yeah, I really like the quote you're saying. So good relationship doesn't come from accident, right? It comes from work and also efforts lah. I also have one more thing to add up. Like, I really like the quote. So to add up to what we have talked about, healthy boundaries is you have to love and respect yourself, to not let other people use or abuse you lah. So you have to set boundaries and to help yourself actually to maintain an even better and healthier romantic relationship and a fulfilling relationship. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's all from us. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see all of you next Wednesday as well at 12 p.m. Bye bye.
Bye bye.